We all want some level of safety and security. Firefighters, construction workers, EMT. They're all there when you need them to help manage life's chaos. In retirement, you want that same level of safety, but who is there for you to make sure your money will last? Brian isn't just there in case of emergency. He's there so you don't have an emergency with your money. A safer retirement doesn't mean a boring retirement, but a prepared one, full of the things that inspire you. This is Safer Retirement Radio with Brian J. Decker.
Welcome to Safer Retirement Radio with Brian J. Decker of Decker Retirement Planning. I'm Mark Elliott. Glad you're with us. Brian and the team, and today we're joined by Mark Knauss. The Decker Retirement Planning team is all about helping you figure out where you are on that road to retirement. If you have questions, can I retire? Do we have enough? Are we going to be okay? Will our money last? 833-707-3030 is the number, 833-707-3030. We'll give you that number throughout the program. But if you have questions, what a great place to get some clarity into your retirement picture. Doesn't mean you're going to be a client of Decker Retirement. You might. It might be a great fit for you. Might not. Might not be a good fit for them either. But it's really about finding out where you are. Get some clarity into your retirement picture. 833-707-3030. And I say every week as we kick off the show, you can always go to the website, deckerretirementplanning.com, to learn more. But you can also go there because under the heading of Safer Retirement Education, there's 12 different things you can download, and it's all for your information. There's no cost to grab any or all, including Brian's book on retirement, The Decker Approach. So Brian and Mark are going to jump into a whole bunch of things that are going on in the world today. And there's a lot going on in Social Security. We're going to kind of focus on Social Security. And Brian, you know, President Biden, before the end of his term, put in the Social Security Fairness Act, which has a Windfall Elimination Provision, has a government pension offset. And I know you and Mark are going to discuss that, but we're going to get into Social Security today, aren't we?
Yes, we're going to go into depth on Social Security. So, Mark, we've got two Marks. So I'm going to say Mark K and the other Mark E.
I think if you're talking with any retirement questions, we'll just understand that it's going to Mark Knauss. How about that?
Yes. There you go. Well, the Social Security Fairness Act is recent, Mark. It was enacted on January 5th of this year, 2025. And let's talk about that, the Social Security Fairness Act. Tell us how it affects people, what states are involved, and let's dive into the details.
Sure. So the Social Security Fairness Act was designed to address the situation where, say, a government employee has been paying into Social Security over a portion of their lifetime, but then they shift to a public employee system that has a pension, so they weren't paying into the Social Security system while they were government employees. So now you have this situation where the employee, over the course of their 30 years working, has some Social Security income that they've paid into and some that we call it not covered. So partially covered over here in the private sector and then not covered over here in the public sector. Well, when these employees go to retire, they were in a situation where the benefit that they were receiving between Social Security and their pension wasn't enough, or it was a little bit reduced compared to if you had been paying into Social Security your entire working career. So the Social Security Fairness Act is designed to even the playing field between what a retiree is receiving from the pension and also from Social Security.
And let's talk about who's affected. So, Mark, give us as an example. Let's get more specific. Who's affected by this?
Sure. So this will affect government employees like police officers, firefighters, government employees, school teachers, anybody that's paying into the civil service retirement system or their federal retirement system program. This act will impact their pension and their Social Security benefits.
Okay, let's talk about how. So what if someone is paid into the system, and let's give situations. For example, a public employee, a government employee who's getting a pension from the government, that's from the U.S. taxpayer. Taxpayers pay in the Social Security system too. So it's just kind of equalizing and making it fair that they're not double dipping, right? If they haven't paid into Social Security, why would they get Social Security?
Correct. So if you've worked in the public sector your entire life and you've never paid into the Social Security system, then this won't affect you. You won't magically be eligible for Social Security benefits. But if you do have a prorated blend between public sector and private sector, then what this looks to do is increase your Social Security benefit so that between your Social Security and your pension, you're receiving equalized benefits. So for example, if you're a school teacher and say you were a school teacher for 10 years before you retired, but before you became a school teacher, you worked, say, my first job was at Safeway. So I worked at Safeway for 20 years and then I become a school teacher. Well, the whole time I was working in the private sector, I was paying into Social Security system. So I was earning credits while I was working in the private sector. And then I shift over to a public sector program. Well, the way the new system works is that it will evaluate my private sector experience and it will apply that to my Social Security benefit, and then it will adjust for my pension as well.
Okay, so it's a fairness equalizing act. And for fairness, it's going to affect people unfairly if, let's say, Mark, before we jumped on the radio, Mark E., we talked about the teacher that works a summer job. And so during his actual career of working as a teacher, he gets the pension, but during the summertime when he's working another job to bring in income and pays in Social Security, he's not going to get paid on that, right?
Yeah, he didn't at the time, but that's what they're doing now is saying, well, wait a minute, you paid in, so you should get some of that. So it's like if your pension was $3,000 or your Social Security should have been $3,000, but your pension was $2,500, they'd like to reduce some of that for your Social Security. So it's kind of crazy how this is playing out. It makes sense to me. If you never paid in Social Security, you probably shouldn't get it. But one of the things I think is interesting, and Mark, you can touch on this if you want to, or Brian, but you think about, let's say that I was married to a school teacher. Okay, so she got a pension.
Mm-hmm.
But in the states that this is affected, but my Social Security, when I pass away, typically the higher Social Security goes to the living spouse, right? The one that's still alive keeps the higher of the two. Well, she didn't have any, so whichever, so either one of us passed away, the higher one would go to him. But in this scenario, they were saying that even the spousal benefits did not go if that was a scenario. They've changed that. So now, because if my Social Security was 1,000, because maybe it was reduced because of the Social Security windfall stuff, all this windfall elimination. If my Social Security should have been 3, but because of the other stuff, I was only getting 1. But my spouse was getting 3,000 Social Security. When they passed away, I should get the 3,000, the higher of the two. They've kind of put that back into play where it actually was not available for a lot of people.
What you're referring to there is kind of the second component of the Fairness Act. So they eliminated 2 different pieces of legislation with this act. They eliminated the Windfall Elimination Provision and then also the government pension offset. So when you're talking spousal benefits, that has to do with the GPO, the government pension offset. And that's a tremendous benefit for spouses of people as it relates to what they receive as spousal benefits when one spouse passes away. So this is a really nice feature to allow for exactly what you mentioned,
Doesn't
Mark.
that make sense? I mean, when you think about it, if I was, let's say I was married, I had a stay-at-home mom, right? I had a good job. She didn't need to work. She had to raise the kids. She never paid into Social Security, but she still had the ability to get half of my Social Security when that became eligible. And if I passed away, she'd got all my Social Security. That, to me, makes sense because if you never paid in Social Security in that scenario, why in the other scenario where you actually worked, you never got the benefit of anything that your spouse did? That's the crazy part. So this does make sense to me. Brian, does it make sense to you?
It makes sense to me. So, Marky, what states are going to be affecting people?
Yeah, it is kind of crazy because it depends on how I think, you think of police, fire, government employees, teachers that have pensions. The question is, did their job, when they got paid, did it pay into Social Security? Well, some of these states did not. Like Kansas, for example, I think it's Indiana. Their teachers did pay into Social Security. So this doesn't affect them. So they would be, as Mark K was talking about, the covered part of this because they'd paid in Social Security. So they're going to get their Social Security because they paid in. So Alaska, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Illinois, Louisiana, Maine, Massachusetts, Missouri, Nevada, Ohio, and Texas are the main states affected. Now, Brian, you have an office in California, so this affects your California office with your boy Brad over there in San Francisco, right?
That's right. So we'll be watching this carefully. So let's move on. Let's continue with the topic of Social Security, but let's talk about the basics of Social Security and get into some of the questions. So Social Security starts at age 62. It basically grows 5% a year until age 65. And then from ages 66 to age 70, it grows 8% a year. And the benefit basically doubles between 62 and 70. So it sounds like it's a no-brainer to take Social Security at age 70, but there are some instances where you would want to draw it sooner. One of them would be health. So, for example, Mark, if I drew at 62 and you drew at 70, I've got an 8-year head start on you, and I better live to about age 83, 84, because that's where the lines cross. If your health, if you think you're going to live to age 83, 84, it makes mathematical sense to wait until age 70. Now, you can make moves on the fly. You can plan on waiting till age 70, but if there is a bad diagnosis from the doctor, bad news, start it right away. But Mark, let's talk about the importance of the full retirement age. So give the background of that and why that's important, especially for spousal.
Yeah, so the full retirement age is designed, the government is incentivizing you to work longer while still increasing your Social Security benefit. So full retirement age for most people out there is somewhere in between 66 years old and 67 years old. And if you turn on your Social Security benefit before your full retirement age, you are limited in how much income you can earn without Social Security reducing your benefit that they pay out every year. So usually there's a reduction in benefits of $1 for every $2 that you earn if you have earnings before full retirement age up to about $23,000 a year. So they give you the first $23,000, no problem. But anything after that, they start clawing back your benefits. But after your full retirement age, then there is no clawback in benefits. Now you can turn your benefit on at full retirement age and continue to work, and there's no reduction in benefits. But the government also wants to incentivize you to postpone taking your distribution. So like Brian mentioned, they give you an 8% annual increase in your Social Security benefit from full retirement age up to age 70.
So, Mark, here's a question for you then in that regard, because I'm 65. I have not started Social Security because I have a job and I make over 23,000, like by 1,000. So they wouldn't take much out. But so I was born in 1959 because it's by the year you were born. So like 1955, it's 66 and 2 months, and it goes all the way to 66 and 10 months in 1959. Then 1960 years later, your full retirement age is 67. But for me, like this year, if I started Social Security, I would be getting, for every $2 I got, I'd give $1 back.
That's right.
Next year I turned 66. Even though it's November is my full retirement age, if I started it when I hit January 1 of 2026, I guess, when I turned 66, then it would be for every $3 I got, I would give $1 back until I actually hit my 66 and 10 months, right?
Correct. So in the year that you turn your full retirement age, that calculation adjusts a little bit. So between January and say November, there would be an adjustment. And they look at your benefit on a monthly basis. So every month that you wait, it would prorate for that month.
So here's the deal. We're talking Social Security. We've got a lot to get to with Brian and Mark today on the program. Glad you're with us right here on Safer Retirement Radio with the team from Decker Retirement Planning. If you want to learn more, you have some questions. Maybe it's about the Windfall Elimination Provision or the government pension offset that we started with, or you just have Social Security questions. Call the team. They're here to help. 833-707-3030, 833-707-3030. There's no cost. There's no pressure. There's no obligation. There's no judgment either. They're not going to say, well, why did you get rid of that? when you shouldn't have. Well, I didn't know. I didn't know the future. Brian, how about that? 833-707-3030. Brian and Mark back with more right here on Safer Retirement Radio right after this.
If you only think about taxes once a year, you're doing it wrong. To get the most out of your retirement nest egg, you shouldn't just file your taxes. You need to plan for them. Call Brian now to see what tax opportunities you could take advantage of. 833-707-3030. That's 833-707-3030.
Uncle Sam might need a loan soon from you. We have over $35 trillion in national debt. Where do you think the money to pay for that is going to come from? Taxes. Believe it or not, taxes are at historic lows right now. But how much longer will that last? A Roth IRA conversion might be a good option when planning for your retirement because you can pay lower taxes now and avoid potentially higher taxes later on. Brian Decker and the team at Decker Retirement Planning have seen taxes rise and fall. They know what options you have to potentially reduce the amount of taxes you pay in retirement. Call the team at Decker Retirement Planning and schedule your tax analysis today. 833-707-3030. That's 833-707-3030. Uncle Sam needs money. Don't let him take it from you. 833-707-3030. Investment advisory and insurance services offered through Decker Retirement Planning, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Investing involves risk. Always consult with a qualified tax advisor before making any decisions regarding a Roth IRA conversion, as there may be additional tax considerations.
You're listening to Safer Retirement Radio. If you like what you hear on today's show or have questions, drop by DeckerRetirementPlanning.com or call 833-707-3030 to talk to Brian.
Welcome back to Safer Retirement Radio with Brian J. Decker and Mark Knauss of Decker Retirement Planning. I'm Mark Elliott, glad you're with us. Any questions? Do you have questions about Social Security, which is what we're talking about today? We talked about the Windfall Elimination Provision. We talked about the government pension offset. Some states are really affected by that. Others are not. So if you have questions, you can always call the team, 833-707-3030, 833-707-3030. Talking Social Security, and hey, Brian, now that I'm 65, and I think this started at 62, I now have a Social Security statement that I get in the mail. I never used to, so I think they wait. They're saving money on mailings until you actually are in that time frame. But just so you know, from 23 to 24, Brian, how much do you think my Social Security went up? And I haven't started it yet, but how much do you think my Social Security went up? So if I had started it at 63 and 8 months, my total dollar amount was $2,026. And the next year I get it, it says 64 at 8 months, $2,303. It went up almost $300. And even my 66 and 10 months went up $80 or so. So it goes up a little bit all the time you're waiting. So there's a lot that goes into this decision, I think.
Right. So mathematically, what we do, love being fiduciaries to our clients, love being math-based firm. So what Mark and I do at our offices in San Francisco, Seattle, Renton, Bellevue, Washington, then we've got Salt Lake City, and we've got Lehigh. In all our offices, we run a Social Security optimization report so that we can find out mathematically how best to draw Social Security. For example, there's many tricky situations, right, Mark, where maybe the wife has worked, where her Social Security benefit was very high. We take into consideration age differences, and then we find out mathematically how best to draw Social Security, because we're solving for two variables. One, if they're married. One is how to maximize the husband's Social Security, and also how to maximize her Social Security. Now, if she's worked, and they're very close in age, it's a no-brainer, very easy, take it at age 70. But what if there's a 7 or 8 year age difference? Now, do you draw his at 70 and then hers at 70? What if she hasn't really paid in much to the Social Security office? Now we're solving for two variables, because every year that she doesn't take hers, is it in their best interest as a couple to wait and have her spousal benefit maximized at her full retirement age? So one of the things, Mark, you talked about in the last segment is you've got to wait till your full retirement age to draw Social Security, because if you draw sooner, and if you make more than $18,000 or so, then you're penalized $1 for every 3. But if you draw Social Security after your full retirement age, there's no limit on the amount of income that you draw from W-2, 1099 income. But now let's talk about the full retirement age being the maximum that a spousal benefit can grow to. So every year that you wait on a spousal benefit after age 67, there's no benefit, just like there's no benefit of waiting to past age 70. So Mark, speak to that and how we maximize spousal benefits.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Brian. At 67 is when the spousal benefit maxes out. You don't get that 8% annualized increase for spousal benefits. So it's fascinating when we run these Social Security optimization reports based on just a little bit of nuance in every relationship, how that impacts the optimization of Social Security benefits for an individual and for a couple, primarily for a couple. The dynamics that are involved in the calculations really fascinating. But you're right. So if one spouse turns on their benefit and the other one waits, well, maybe that's the right decision, but maybe not, depending on when spousal benefits maximize, when longevity, the portfolio value, all of these different factors play into the calculation of when we should turn on our Social Security benefit. And that's a huge value that we provide for all of our clients when they come in and go through a financial planning process with us. We take them through the Social Security optimization report. It's a 10-page report that we generate for our clients, and we look at different scenarios. Say, for example, we say, well, what's the soonest that we can turn on Social Security? Well, what happens if we turn on Social Security at full retirement age? What happens if we turn on Social Security at age 70? What are the different factors that play into the equation? And oh, by the way, what is the optimal time in this couple's case to start taking Social Security benefits?
Right. Now, let's talk about the big elephant in the room. By the way, I just want to get out in the open a pet peeve of mine. Mark, what really bothers me is that they call this a government benefit. It's not. It's our own money that they're giving back to us with zero return. And by the way, if you die before you receive the benefit, does the government pay you into your estate? No. So this is your own money coming back to you. And that it kind of bugs me that this is called a government benefit. But here's the big elephant in the room. For 50 years, me personally, I've been getting, since I had a paper route, that the Social Security system would be insolvent by fill in the blank. So what should we say to the people that are worried about the solvency of the Social Security system? It is robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's a pay-as-you-go system. No Social Security account that's investing client money. It's just it's counting on people paying in to support the workers that are on retirement. Now, the demographics of this make it very difficult. It used to be there were 7 workers paying into the system for every one person back in the 20s and 30s. Now there's only two and change. So the Social Security by demographics is getting stressed. There's no return on it. And the system is getting stressed. So what's happening is they're pushing out the full retirement age is one thing. They're also talking about, they haven't done this yet, but Mark, talk about means testing.
Yeah. So the idea with means testing is with a lot of government programs, you have to qualify for the benefit. And this kind of goes to what Brian was saying, that we think of this like it's a government benefit, but really it's our own money that we've paid into. But means testing is a way of saying, looking at your financial situation and determining whether or not you qualify for the benefit or not. So if, say, for example, you earn $500,000 in annual income, maybe the federal government says, well, you don't necessarily need your Social Security benefit, so we're going to not pay that out. And that's kind of the idea behind means testing, is that there would be some government program or government litmus test to determine whether or not you get your Social Security benefit or not.
So, Ryan, let me ask you another question. You said the one thing that you don't like is that we've been paying into Social Security the entire time, and basically they've been holding our money, but we're not making any money on that money when we get it back. But the same thing, how do you feel about taxes? In 1983, they said, we can tax Social Security up to 50%. And then they said we can tax it in 1993 up to 85%. And I'm thinking, Brian, didn't I already pay taxes on that?
Yeah, so let me answer that real quick, Mark. So when you and I, we earn our paycheck, we pay Social Security and Medicare taxes. Both of those combined is called our FICA tax. So we pay about 7.5% as employees into FICA, and then the employer also pays another 7.5%. So between me and my employer, we pay 15% taxes on our income into Social Security and Medicare. Then when we receive our Social Security benefit back later in retirement, that 15% that we paid into the system is now considered a return of premium or return of principal. So we actually receive that tax-free, and we only pay income tax on about 85% of our benefit.
Or if you're like me, hoping to not pay any Social Security tax. We will see how it all plays out when I start it. There's a lot going on because President Trump has said he wants to get rid of the federal taxes on Social Security. So a lot of states don't have tax on Social Security, so we'll see where we're going. We know there's a lot of challenges for Social Security moving forward. When we come back, Brian and Mark are going to talk about some of the common questions they do get about Social Security. If you want to talk with them, 833-707-3030. No cost for this, complimentary, 833-707-3030. Brian and Mark back with more of the Safer Retirement Radio program with the Decker Retirement Planning Team. Back right after this.
Do you need help ensuring any remaining assets that you've worked so hard to create are distributed to your beneficiaries in the most tax-efficient manner? If you would like to talk or meet with Brian about your legacy planning, call 833-707-3030. Again, that's 833-707-3030.
When you crash your car, you get it fixed. When your computer crashes, you get a new one. But what will you do if you've been saving in a 401k or an IRA and the market crashes? If you're in your 30s or 40s, you'll likely be just fine. But if you're in or near retirement, you could be in trouble. Brian Decker and his team at Decker Retirement Planning are here to help. They can run a risk analysis to see if you're too heavily invested in the market. Are you confident that a Wall Street crash won't wreck your retirement? If not, call 833-707-3030 today to schedule your risk analysis with Brian Decker and the team at Decker Retirement Planning. That's 833-707-3030. Crashes happen. Question is your retirement ready? Decker Retirement Planning, 833-707-3030. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Investment advisory and insurance services offered through Decker Retirement Planning, Inc., a registered investment advisor.
Glad you're with us today for Safer Retirement Radio with Brian J. Decker and Mark Knauss of Decker Retirement Planning. Of course, you can always go to the website to learn more, DeckerRetirementPlanning.com. You can pick up Brian's book under the heading of Safer Retirement Education. There's 12 different things you can download. There's no cost to you. One of those, though, is Brian's book on retirement, The Decker Approach. Pick it up. Maybe it'll spur your mind as what you need to be aware of heading into retirement. Or maybe you're already retired. You got some free time. You want to read a book about the retirement process at Decker Retirement. There you go. The Decker Approach book. 833-707-3030. If you just want to have a conversation, you got some questions, have some concerns. Boy, it's a Trump 2.0. Does that change how I should be investing heading into retirement? A lot of questions, right? 833-707-3030. We've been talking about Social Security. And Brian, I know you've been doing this a long time. You sit down with a lot of different people, and there's some common Social Security questions, I believe, that you and your advisors at Decker Retirement get asked, aren't there?
Yeah, one of them is it better to go into Social Security office or try to give them a call online or go online? And Mark Knauss, I just have heard time and time again that starting up your Social Security can be detailed. It shouldn't be, but it can be detailed. It's best to go into a Social Security office to get that done. I've heard nightmares about the call waiting period of waiting for someone to come online. And something you should know about the Social Security offices and people working there, they are told that they cannot give you advice. So if you're thinking that you're going to get advice from them, they are told that they cannot give or provide advice to any person. It's up to you to come in and tell them what you want to do. So, Mark, your thoughts on that? Is it best to do it online? Is it best to do it with a phone call or in person? I would say it's best, if you're going to start your Social Security, to go in person. What do you say?
Yeah, I would agree. I'm a very personable person, so I love talking to somebody face to face. It brings up different dynamics in a conversation. So when you're sitting there talking to somebody in person, now there's a relational aspect to the conversation, and they'll be able to give you maybe some resources or maybe some ideas or additional information regarding your account and your benefits that maybe they wouldn't be able to give over the phone, or maybe a website can't give. So talking to somebody there in the office that has experience with this, I think is definitely a huge value add. So I would recommend that for most people if they're able to. Now, not everybody's able to get to the Social Security office. So a phone call would probably be my second best option. And then trying to poke around on a government website seems like a very difficult way to go about doing it.
But if you're trying to figure out when to take your Social Security, the Social Security Administration can just tell you, well, at 62, you get this amount, at 70, you get that amount, and anywhere in between, this is what you're going to get. They can't tell you what they think you should do. They can only give you the facts about your Social Security, right?
That's right. But let's talk about some bizarre things that are floating out there. Maybe we can quell some rumors that are just definitely not true. There's one thing floating out there saying that at age 70, after age 70, that your Social Security is not going to be taxed. And that's not true. I don't know where that rumor started, but we want to just publicly put that to rest. Now, there are some states that don't, Mark Elliott, you just said there's some states that don't tax your Social Security. But at the federal level, there's a rumor that says after age 70 that you're not going to be taxed on your Social Security, and that's false.
Now, Brian, here's another one for you. The state of New Mexico, it's the only one I've heard of. Once you hit the age of 100, no more taxes. You've paid your fair share. You are done. That should be all 50 states, shouldn't it? You hit 100, you got no more taxes.
Should be all 50 states. Absolutely. If you've lived at age 100, you deserve no taxes on that. Here's another one. I don't know where this came from either. There's a rumor floating around that there's a bonus of $16,728 for people that receive Social Security, and they can claim that bonus. That is a scam. It's a big enough scam that it's coming up on the Social Security's website warning you about it. Here's another one. There's something called the 5-year rule when it comes to Social Security disability. Social Security disability requires that you must have worked 5 out of the last 10 years immediately before your disability onset to qualify for Social Security disability insurance. Mark Knauss, do you know anything about Social Security disability?
Not enough to be an expert in it. I have a special needs son, so I know enough that Social Security disability is an incredibly important program, and we want to make sure that we're treating these with the respect, and we're not manipulating the system so that it ends up being a detriment to people who actually need the benefit.
Brian, I can tell you that I do not like how that plays out. My daughter was in a car wreck 7 years ago at the age of 17. She's now 24, so it's been 7 years. So she gets Social Security. I think it started they turned her down like 3 times, and they said, hey, they're going to turn you down. Just keep calling. They're going to give it to you. We got all the doctor's files and all of that because she's paralyzed from the waist down. So she's going to get Social Security, but they said they're going to turn her down. Just keep calling, keep calling. Well, they finally approved it, and then they backdated it and gave her the money they should have to start with. So her first check was bigger than normal, but she started about $700, and I think now it's maybe $900 or so. But if she goes and makes money, they reduce her benefit. There is no possible way to get ahead of the game if you're in that. I don't think it's fair to her. She should be able to. I guess what they're trying to do is make sure that she can become a money launderer, because she's got to have way. I mean, she can't move out until she has enough money to do so. But Social Security is going to penalize her for doing so. I think it's a problem with our system.
There are so many programs out there that essentially act as a counter to good behavior. So they will provide so many benefits that if you go and get a job or you have some kind of productive wages, then these benefits go away. And so that acts as a deterrent to you making money and you being a productive member of society because, oh no, your benefit might go away. And I think
so you can see why there is a lot of fraud, I think, when it comes to Medicare and Social Security. Just because of the way the system works.
And at the state level too, right? Yeah. Unemployment and all kinds of government benefits.
There should be some motivation for them to figure out how they can get some benefits, but also work and make some money too. I don't know. Brian, you've been in this longer. You got answers for this, right? You got the solution.
Well, I want to stay on the mainstream side. I guess I'm looking through some of these FAQs and let's stay mainstream. So Mark, it's very important that when a spouse dies, that they know to do two things right away. One is stop your Social Security if you're taking the lesser amount. If you forget to stop it, there's problems. They can claim that you've been fraudulent in drawing Social Security from a deceased person. So you want to make sure you stop Social Security of the deceased person. And second, you want to make sure that you draw the greater of the two Social Security benefits. As a spouse married for, what is it, Mark, 12 years?
10
years.
10 years, you are entitled to Social Security. I had an Econ 101 professor who said that, who was teaching us that the benefit of multiple payouts, that you should work for the government for 20 years, get your pension, and then work for another government position. He said, and you should marry. He talks about some of the spouses that are collecting multiple Social Securities. But anyhow, he said, my situation is the reverse. I'm paying out alimony to 3 different wives. So that's a negative. But anyhow, when it comes to Social Security, I think we covered most of the mainstream stuff. We want to talk about pensions in detail for the last segment. Mark Knauss, anything else, or Mark Elliott, anything else on Social Security before we jump into pensions?
Just one quick note. There's a lot of clickbait articles out there that talk about Social Security going away in 2030. And this is a very common question that comes up is, what happens if Social Security goes away in 2030? The reality is that it won't go away. What is struggling is the Social Security Trust Fund, which accounts for about 25% of the benefit that Social Security retirees receive. But the United States is probably the largest economic force in the world when it comes to national economy. And so to think that as a country, our retirement system would no longer be there for our retirees, I think that's irresponsible with a lot of these articles out there that scare people into thinking that their Social Security will not be there when they retire.
And of course, Congress, which has a lot to do with all of these Social Security, Medicare decisions, have kind of been kicking the can down the road. That 20, 30, 33, 34, 35, they're saying it's going to run out. You're going to get 78 cents on the dollar. We know Brian's still under the impression that the people in Congress do everything they can for the American people. I don't really think they do. Brian thinks they do, so I appreciate Brian's positive outlook. But at the end of the day, what do they really want? They want to get reelected. Don't mess with my Social Security or you're no longer in office. That's what I think. But they kick the can down the road. At some point, Mark, they're going to have to, take this head on and make some big decisions on this. Because you're right. I'm 65. I'm not worried about my Social Security being there for as long as I can take it whenever I start it. But my daughter's 24. There's going to be a lot of changes, I would think, by the time she gets to that age.
Yeah. From a planning standpoint, I think best case is just be conservative with your estimates. If Social Security is telling you that your benefit is going to be X, well, maybe reduce that by a little bit just to be on the conservative side. Or if historical inflation, cost of living adjustment for Social Security has been 2.5%, 3%, well, maybe back that down to 0.5%, just to be conservative in your future planning when it comes to retirement.
So there's a lot of things going on with Social Security. We talked about the Windfall Elimination Provision. We talked about the government pension offset. Those are big, big things for those of you that have been in the public sector of getting a pension and how that affects you and the spousal part of the Social Security world. And boy, I was a school teacher and we didn't pay into Social Security. Now I'm going to be able to get a little bit more. It's going to be backdated only to 2024. So it's not like you can go back to 2015 and get all that money that you think you should have gotten. But there's a lot going on there. And if you just have regular Social Security questions, that's what Brian and the team and Mark and the team at Decker Retirement Planning are all about, helping you figure out what is the best scenario for you. And as Mark said, they've got all this computer software that puts in, hey, these two are married. Here's when this one's eligible, this one's eligible. What about when one passes away? What would they do? When is the opportune time? There is a great time to take it. It's not necessarily at 62, and it's not always at 70. Everybody's situation is unique, and that's how Mark and Brian and the team at Decker Retirement look at it. What is the best scenario for you? And you think about this. This is a $1 million decision. If the average Social Security person is going to receive $500,000 to $600,000 over their lifetime, well, you're married. Now we're over $1 million. This is a big decision. If you have questions about it, you want to make the right decision for you and your spouse and your family, 833-707-3030. 833-707-3030. We're going to get into the pension world with Brian and Mark right after this on Safer Retirement Radio. Stay with us.
Crafting your legacy is like planting seeds for a future forest. Let's nurture your vision together. Speak with Brian and the team at Decker Retirement Planning at 833-707-3030 to ensure your legacy grows strong.
When you crash your car, you get it fixed. When your computer crashes, you get a new one. But what will you do if you've been saving in a 401k or an IRA and the market crashes? If you're in your 30s or 40s, you'll likely be just fine. But if you're in or near retirement, you could be in trouble. Brian Decker and his team at Decker Retirement Planning are here to help. They can run a risk analysis to see if you're too heavily invested in the market. Are you confident that a Wall Street crash won't wreck your retirement? If not, call 833-707-3030 today to schedule your risk analysis with Brian Decker and the team at Decker Retirement Planning. That's 833-707-3030. Crashes happen. Question is your retirement ready? Decker Retirement Planning, 833-707-3030. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Investment advisory and insurance services offered through Decker Retirement Planning, Inc., a registered investment advisor.
You're listening to Safer Retirement Radio. If you like what you hear on today's show or have questions, drop by DeckerRetirementPlanning.com or call 833-707-3030 to talk to Brian.
Welcome back to Safer Retirement Radio with Brian J. Decker and Mark Knauss of Decker Retirement Planning. You can go to the website, DeckerRetirementPlanning.com. There's a lot of information there about Brian and the team, offices, where they are. But you can certainly find out more just by checking it out on the website. A lot of information for you as well about retirement and the financial world. DeckerRetirementPlanning.com. Again, it's under the heading of Safer Retirement Education. There's 12 different things you can download. Brian's book on retirement, The Decker Approach, 3 Principles of Retirement book, the Checklist Challenge, Sample Income Plan. That's just 4 of the 12 things you can download. No cost to you. It's just there for your information. Check it out, DeckerRetirementPlanning.com. You can always call them with questions, 833-707-3030, 833-707-3030. All right, Brian, you and Mark are going to get into the pension world now, correct?
Right. So when it comes to pensions, we want to talk about advantages, disadvantages. So we're a math-based firm. We take our fiduciary responsibility very seriously. And let's say, Mark Knauss, you're 65 years old, you have the decision to make, you're retiring, you've got a pension at Boeing, and Boeing is going to pay you out either $1,000 a month for life, or you get a lump sum of $168,000. So let's break that down. So $1,000 for life, is that a good deal? So mathematically, we would point out that $1,000 a month, easy math, that's $12,000 a year. You would have to wait 14 years. If I took a lifetime payout and you took the lump sum, Mark, you get today what takes me 14 years to collect. So there's 3 reasons that we recommend that people take the lump sum option on their pension when that option's available. And one of them is just basic performance. If I earn 4%, Mark, if in that case, if you earn 4% on your money, the lines never cross. You can be 200 years old, the lines never cross. So the first reason that we would point out to take a pension, a lump sum over a lifetime payout is performance. The second reason is what we call corporate or company risk. So let's use Boeing again. Mark, there were a lot of very concerned people, the 737 MAX, and when that went sideways and Boeing was held liable, the FAA found them at fault. There were lawsuits. They paid out a lot of money. Their program was on hold. It cost them a lot of money. And the financial cushion that Boeing had was gone. And people were very concerned about their pension payouts. Just remember, people that are listening to this program, you have to believe that your company is not going to change and be financially strong for the next 30 years. Well, what happened to Kmart and J.C. Penney's and Eastman Kodak? And where did Pan Am go? These are major companies that are now completely gone. So we would point out that you have company risk if you decide on a lifetime payout. And the third and final is estate risk. So Mark, let's say that you are taking the lump sum, you and your wife go skiing with my wife and I, Diane, and we go heli skiing. The worst happens, avalanche takes the four of us out. Well, I took the lifetime payment, and even though I've earned it, that is gone when my wife and I are gone. She's my primary beneficiary. That stops. Even though I earned it, it is not in my estate. That money that you took lump sum, Mark, is in your estate to be distributed to your beneficiaries, to your children or your beneficiaries. So that is called estate risk. But Mark, you know there's one reason why people take their lifetime payout. It's not mathematical. What is it? Explain what that is.
It's the comfort that comes with the income coming into them every month. They see that payment come in, and it doesn't have anything to do with what's going on Wall Street. There's this nice big snuggly blanket that they can wrap themselves up in their monthly pension. But you're right, mathematically, it's not in their best interest to take the lifetime monthly income. It's in their best interest to take the lump sum. But for some people, they don't want to stomach the risk, or it's just easy. It's just easy for them to check the box and take the monthly pension.
Now, Mark, let's talk about two other options. Let's say that the Boeing person does not have a lump sum option. They're going to get a lifetime payout. Well, they have another option. Let's calculate. Let's say that they die at age 90. We do the calculation of that return, the original money, the amount of the pension. There are some other pension payouts that may pay out more money. So you want to make sure, if you don't have a lump sum option, that you're getting paid out at the highest rate of return. So in the second option here, if they have a lump sum option and they want a lifetime payout, we can shop the best payout. So they can take the lump sum. We can do the calculation of the lifetime payout and maximize their return if they do want the lifetime payout. That's not mathematically smart, wise, for many reasons that we covered. But that's the second option, is at least if they do want a lifetime payout, we can maximize their return. Mark, let's talk about the third option. And this is something that's being marketed widely by many people in retirement. We want to put this to bed as a scam.
I know exactly what you're talking about, Brian.
Yeah,
so in this situation, sorry, go ahead.
We go describe and warn our listeners to be very wary of this other instrument that's heavily marketed to retirees.
I see this. It drives me nuts. So here, a financial advisor, say you go to your financial advisor and they'll tell you, I can put you into a strategy that will get you a 7% rate of return for 10 years. And guaranteed. Then after that 10-year period, you can take 4% from that strategy for the rest of your life. Well, doesn't that sound great? A guaranteed rate of return and then 4% every year for the rest of your life? Well, it sounds good, but if you put math to the numbers, it actually turns out to be a terrible situation. So let me just put some numbers here. Say you're 65 years old and you do this. Say you take $100,000, you put it into this strategy. For 10 years, it grows at 7%. Rule of 72 says your $100,000 after 10 years is now $200,000. Brian, how old are you now?
You were 65 when you started this. Now you're 75, and your 100,000 has grown to 200,000. Good news.
Right.
Looking good so far.
Good job. Good job. All right. Promise one kept. So now you can take 4% of $200,000 every year for the rest of your life. Well, 4% of $200,000, I can do some math. That's $8,000 a year. How many years do you need to draw income from that policy just to get your own money back?
Well, 4,000 into, no, 8,000. 8,000 into 100,000 is 12 and a half. So let's see, you're 75 when you start this. So you're 87 and a half. You go 22 and a half years with a zero return.
Before you make a dime. And life expectancy being late 80s, 90s, maybe 100 years old, your rate of return on that $100,000 is absolutely abysmal. So
wait, I want to say what you said differently. Life expectancy for a man or a woman is 86 to 88. The plan, those numbers don't lie. The plan is for them to have a zero return. So this is great for the insurance company. We want to warn people against variable annuities, income annuities, life annuities, or income riders. We hope categorically you stay away from all of those.
Yeah. Just the fees on those types of strategies are astronomical, and the benefit that you end up receiving from them is very low. So I agree. And one thing that I love about being an advisor here at Decker is we put the math to the strategy and say, prove it.
So let's talk about fees. Talk about the variable annuity, Mark. Break that down for us.
Yeah. So when you're talking variable annuity, so obviously the insurance salesman gets paid a commission, usually about 1% every year that you own the policy. The insurance company, they've got to make their money, so they'll charge M&E fees and strategy fees on top of that. And also the sub-accounts, the mutual funds inside the policies also have fees. So there's just layer upon layer upon layer of fees with these policies, on average about 5 to 7% a year that you end up paying fees on before you make a dime in your policy. So variable annuities are very low growth, especially when you start putting all these bells and whistles on the policies.
Why wouldn't you just buy SPY, the S&P, with 4 basis points of fees, which is basically zero, and outperform variable annuities and have none of those fees? It boggles my mind. So dealing with a fiduciary, we would never offer that. Now, what's the incentive for an advisor to offer these attachments to an annuity where they have an income rider? They get paid an extra amount on that, right, Mark?
They get paid a little bit extra on the income riders, yes, but essentially it's a marketing strategy for them. It gives them the ability to say, well, in the stock and bond world, you can't have these guarantees, but over here on this annuity, I can give you some guarantees. And they dangle those strategies that sound really attractive until you start putting math to the equation.
And the client usually pays an extra 1% for that income rider. So at Decker Retirement, we don't do those things. We take our fiduciary responsibility very seriously. We do the research for our clients, and we're a math-based firm. And Mark Knauss, we want to warn people also about the biggest fee and commission product out there, non-traded REITs. That's where the advisor usually gets 12 to 15% right up front. They don't price it or show it in your portfolio as price because you don't want you to have a heart attack seeing the drop in your portfolio. And the other REITs that are liquid and available are widely accessible and much better.
Yeah.
So when you think about it, and thanks to Brian and Mark for clearing a lot of things up today about Social Security, about the Windfall Elimination Program, about the government pension offset, about Social Security in general, a lot of different moves you can make there. It'd be wise to sit down with somebody that can actually help you make the right decision, 833-707-3030. And of course, when it comes to pensions and it comes to different tools that different advisors maybe invite you to partake, might be great, might not. Wouldn't be bad to get a second opinion on some of those. Some of those tools make sense for some. They don't make sense for others. So it's all about you. How can the team at Decker Retirement help? 833-707-3030, 833-707-3030. Brian and Mark, appreciate it. Both have a great weekend.
Thanks,
Thank you, Mark.
Security and insurance services offered by Decker Retirement Planning, a registered investment advisor with the SEC.
Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. Decker Retirement Planning is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein, provided by third parties, have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Decker Retirement Planning. This radio show is a paid placement.